It's time. It's time for Photography Kitchen. So let's get started. It doesn't seem 18 episodes, hard to believe. And we're going to get right into it. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to, even though tonight's theme is black and white, there's a couple of things I want to take care of. And this was an image that Bob supplied us for. This is from a helicopter. Is that what you said, Bob? Helicopter, yeah. So I just did rotate it a little bit, but you see there's all these reflections here. And I tried to use Lightroom's tool to get rid of it. So if you come up to here, um, distraction removal, which is under the detail panel, um, or under the spot removal panel rather, you'll see down here reflections. But if I open this up, and I just say, let's just see a preview and apply that and let it run through the image. You see there, it's going to try to do a preview. Even when I set it for best, it basically did nothing. So let's see. Yeah, it really, there's nothing happening. I can turn it on and off, and it's a minor contrast change, but that's it. So how do you deal with something like this? This is getting kind of complicated. If it was really bothering me, and this was my shot, notice this was shot wide angle because you can see the curvature of the horizon up here. If you wanted to fix that first, just saying, let's hit enter on this to get out of here. Though the way you can fix that is come all the way down to lens corrections and the distortion slider, which is this thing right here. And if I start pushing this to the right, you can see the horizon straightens out. And we lost a little bit on the left. I don't think anybody would care, but we can go down to transform. And let's see what happens if we move it off to the left a little bit. Yeah, we're going to lose a little bit anyway, so just crop it out. Or if you don't want to crop anything, you can also adjust the aspect ratio and spread the thing out a little bit longer. Just make it a little wider, and there you go. So you have the whole thing fitting. Now you got a straight horizon, but we still have all of these reflections to get rid of. And this is, we're going to kind of jump in, even though this was supposed to be a, what is this called, an hors d'oeuvre? We're going to have to go into Photoshop for this. So I'm going to Command or Control E to send this image into Photoshop, and we're going to have to use two different tools or two different blending modes to make this work. So where's Photoshop? Come on. I said edit in. There we go. Okay, here's the image in Photoshop. And as always, first thing, Command J to make a copy. And you can see over on the layer now, there's another one. For some reason, I must have brought this in some other way because there's no background, just the image. Okay, so here's the image. What can you do with this? I think the first thing I do would be to select. No, I'm not going to select anything. I'm going to show you the tools that I would use. I would start with the stamp or cloning tool, whichever you prefer to call it. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And if we just tried to use it as a standard tool where we're cloning from somewhere else, that could work somewhat. So for example, if I hold down, I've got the tool set, there's my brush. If I hold down Alt or Control and click, I can then come over to here and start painting that in. But what it's doing is it's actually painting with the area that I sampled from. So if I zoom in on this, you can see you start to get repeating patterns. There's the exact same shadows that happened, and that might be a problem. Here's another way you can do that, and this is where you get into blending modes. So again, clicking the same tool, and what I'm going to do instead is use luminosity. So it's not just brightness, it's the whole contrast of everything it's sampling from. So with choosing the blending mode, which is what all these things are, instead of normal, if I now hold down Alt and click on here, what it's going to do is take the tonal range that this is being used at, and that's it. So now when I come over here and paint over top of this stuff, you can see what it's doing. See how it just got rid of it? It's still leaving the patterns underneath alone. What it's taking is the lightness, darkness, color tone from where I sampled. So when I come over in here, there we go. And actually that one's working pretty well by itself. So here's a big reflection over here. Again, I'll hold down Alt click and just kind of, oh, we're back. Somehow it switched back to normal. Let's go back to luminosity. Again, Alt click. So I can come in here and you see it does a pretty nice job of getting that. But notice when I went over this light area here, it still kept it because it's just taking the tone. And you can also decide, well, maybe that was a little too much. You can also bring the opaque. We're at painting at 90%. Maybe you want to go to 70% or so. Alt and start lightening it up as you get closer to that lighter area. And you keep Alt clicking to get it. And again, as we get closer, I'm going to go down to 50%. I just hit 5 on the keyboard so that the transition from the darker area to the lighter area starts to build in. And also, you can keep doing it over top. It's cumulative.
Joe, when you alt click and pick a place,
Yep.
if it's from the original photograph, it looks different to me than if then you alt click on something you just went over. Am I making that up?
Say that again.
If you alt click on the original photo where there was no
Okay, so let's do that right here. I'm going to alt click right here.
okay, now do your thing.
Now, and then I'm going to come over here. Let me put it back. Let me make it 90% again.
Okay.
And as I paint in, notice that
Now re-alt click on the part that you just covered over.
re-alt click on it.
Right there.
Yes. And then paint with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Oh, it looked like it was a different, almost not as clear.
Now, yeah, now there's two things about this. Sometimes when you do this, you start getting a color shift. So I'm going to bring this down to 50%. And then when you get to the problem where you have like a border here, that's going to be a little hairier. You're going to have to start doing selections. Let me go ahead. I'll finish this area right here. I don't want to spend all night on this. Let me go back up to 80%. But you see how there's a little bit of a color shift?
Yeah.
The luminosity might be right, but the color's wrong. It's kind of gone bluish green. You see that in here?
Mhm.
So what we need to do then is do it again, except we're going to change the blending mode from luminosity to color. Then I'll come back in here and click, and now it's only going to use the color. It doesn't care what the tone, what's going on underneath it. And now notice how the color has gone right. So you kind of have to, this is a two-piece one.
It looks like the details are gone. Is that?
There just really aren't that. Keep in mind, this is shooting through the window of a helicopter.
Yeah.
So it's, you know,
Yeah.
the image isn't that sharp to begin with.
Right.
I'm just kind of showing you the process. You can see the image is a bit soft.
Right.
Could we sharpen it? Yeah, we could go up into sharpen. Let's see what happens if we do a smart sharpen on this. And I'm going to do a lot. As soon as it catches up with me, I'm going to go up to, 300, 350%. See if we can, yeah, we'll go up real high. And I'll keep the radius down. And let me choose a sample in this area here. And the answer is it's just not going to do much. It's just not sharp.
Okay.
So, but try that. If you want to get rid of something like a reflection like this, it's two tools. It's both with the stamp tool. The order that you do it doesn't really matter. Why? Come on, computer. Why are you not cooperating? It's stuck. But again, the answer is clone, luminosity, clone, color. Those two tools are what allowed me to take this and bring it to here. So here's the before and after. In fact, I'll go full screen on that. Here's the image I was just showing you. And by doing those two things, I took it to there. So we went from there to there. Could I have spent more time on it? Sure, but it was really kind of just the thought process. Apparently I played around with something else to either straighten it out or not straighten it out as much. I don't even remember. I did this last week. But did you guys get that clear
Yeah,
enough? All right.
terrific. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Next, this image was Gloria. This was yours, wasn't it? And you can see, because this is a JPEG, you can see, let's go look, let's zoom in a little bit. Let's go 200%. You can see the banding in the sky up here. So let's say you had done a JPEG and you had done it a couple of times, and you ended up with this, but you really wanted to keep the image otherwise. This is not something that Lightroom can do a good job on. We could try it. Let's see if Lightroom can do anything with this. So we'll go up to the masking panel. We're going to select the sky. And what are the tools that we have? Really, clarity and texture are what we've got. We can bring the clarity way down. That will help. We can bring the texture way down. We can even bring the dehaze down a little bit to actually haze it up. Actually, that's not terrible, but generally the problem is we zoom in. Let's go to 200%. Let's see. Actually, that's not terrible. Let's hide it. Let's see the before. There's the before and after. It did lose some of the details in there. You know what, though? I could live with that. But can you see it on your screens? You see how it's smoothing it out? Now, there is a little bit more control in Photoshop. So let's reset this one and send it into Photoshop, and I'll just show you another option in here. It's actually a little more complicated. And after seeing Lightroom handle it, I think I probably would have just done it in there. But Command J, and again, what I'm going to do is select the sky. So let's go select sky. And what I'm going to do this time instead is I'm going to copy and paste this onto another layer. So Command C, Command V, again, Control. So on this other layer, this is what I have, just the sky there. And I think what I would do for this is a motion blur. So let's go up to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. And the angle, that's a tough, well, if I do it horizontally, I'm going to have, the banding is coming across, so I need to go counter that. But I got to split the difference between that and going 90, because if I go 90 up and down, the clouds are going to get lost. So let's see if we can find a happy medium. And what I'm doing is looking up here to see if it's going away. And I could just increase the distance. That's how long the blur is going to be. And actually, that's not terrible. And Diane she's poking me, so somebody has a question. So the question is, why do I always make a copy of the layers in Photoshop? And I do it for the background. The reason I do that is because if I did something terrible, it gives me a background, an untouched background layer to get to should I mess up. So for example, if I did an adjustment to a layer and I actually did it to the layer rather than as adjustment layer, you're actually changing the pixels in that layer, and it's going to screw it up if you mess up. By having a spare layer above the background, it just gives me a place to be able to get back to. That's all. All right, so what happened when we did this is we caused a blur into the layer below because we blurred this thing. You can see there, you can see the motion blur in there. So what I'm going to do is click back on this layer, do a select the sky again, which will give us a sharp edge. Now that is selected, now here's the sky that got the motion blur in it, and you can see how it's coming through. What I will then do is add a mask. Now we've got the sky selected, so if I click add a mask, and if I alt click on the mask it just created, you can see that's what it created. Now it's letting some of that come through. You can see the mask in Photoshop is not perfect. So what I always like to do to the masks is right on the mask, I will hit Command or Control L, which is the same thing as doing image adjustments levels. You can do that right to the mask. And I'm going to bring the black slider so that blacks are pure black. And I'm going to bring the white slider over so that whites are still white. Still getting a little bit in here. So I'm going to move this over. You can see as I slide the white panel over, we can get rid of that. If there's a little bit of gray in there, it's okay. It's not going to really show. But by adding this mask now, that blur of the sky is not bleeding into the mountains like it was before. So if we go back to 100%, and you can see, yes, it's going to blur the clouds. There's no way around that because you had these bands there. But it did a pretty nice job of keeping the effect, but getting rid of the banding. You could try it both ways. Sometimes Photoshop's going to work better than Lightroom, and sometimes vice versa. So here's our original Lightroom one. Did I actually get rid of that mask? Looks like I did. No, here it is, which we had done with texture and clarity. Any questions on that? If not, the soups are zoomed in. Let's get out of the zoom. All right, it's time for soup. And for that, we are going to, as we usually do, we're going to go to a watery scene. And I love this image as is. Uh, I love this. I have nothing to say that nothing I would change in here. I love it. However, it could be interesting as a black and white, and that's what we're going to try. Now, there's two ways we can do black and white. We can do it in Lightroom or we can do it in Photoshop. Let's do it in Lightroom first. And in Lightroom, let me get out of the masking panel. If you come under the basic panel, you see a black and white button, which will turn it black and white, but I guarantee it's going to be really boring. Because, I mean, it just sucks the life out of the image. That's not what we want. However, when you choose this black and white button, you get a new panel down here called black and white. Now let's click on that to open it up. And we have the black and white mix in here, which isn't particularly helpful. However, you have this button right here. This will adjust. And it actually we didn't really convert this to black and white. All of the colors in this image are still behind it. So let's click on here. Now, I'm sure many of you used to shoot black and white film. And you probably tried putting red, yellow, and orange filters over the camera lens in order to darken the skies and get more contrast out of the blacks and whites. We can do the same thing right here. Without even knowing what color is underneath in the sky, if I click and drag down, it's going to darken that underneath color. If I go up, it will brighten it. So I'm kind of thinking, well, let's see. Let's bring the blues down. Let's make them really dark. Cool. Now, we know the surf in here is kind of green. We saw that in the original. Again, if we click on here, and by the way, as I bring the cursor over this, take notice in the black and white mix sliders that the green one lights up. You see the little triangle in the middle of green. And if I click on that and push it up, I can make that green, in this case, lighter or darker. And I was originally thinking lighter, but now as I look at the image, I think it looks better darker. So how about out here? What is this? Well, this is blue also. It's part of the blue, but that's still pretty cool. Now, this is a pretty nice job. However, this has gotten too dark. So now we have our normal kind of Lightroom tools we can use here. I'm going to go to the masking panel and choose a brush. Auto mask is on, and I'm just going to put a brush across this stuff because I want to bring the brightness back on that. So let's bring the slider back up. Oh, that looks better. And wow, I think the rest of this is just a little bit of light painting. So let's create another brush. We'll create new mask and do brush again. I'm going to turn off auto mask because I just want it to go everywhere. And I'm going to darken that corner, maybe a little bit over here. The sky is plenty dark there. Actually, maybe this upper corner. I know there's some spray there that's causing the lightness, but let's bring this down. And that's kind of interesting. You know, it's got a lot of impact to it. In fact, I did this to the original, so let me make a virtual copy of that and reset so we can see. Now, this is one of those examples. We'll look at it full screen. Um, and again, I love this image. Let's see it as a black and white. And it still works. The focus is different, though. It's more about the shape and the power of the wave. Where recording error. Really? So again, here's the full screen. I love this image, but again, you have to admit that that does have a different kind of impact, and it really just becomes personal preference here. Let's do it one other way. And also, before I forget, what else would I do? I had already applied a vignette to this. I'm even going to darken it a little more. And does it even need more contrast? Let's come up to the basic slider. Maybe bring up the exposure just a little. Add some more contrast. And I'm going to bring the whites down just to keep them from getting a little too close to pure white. And yeah, that's pretty cool. But let's see what else we can do. Now, we could do it in Photoshop, but I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm going to send this into Nik's Silver Efex. So we're going to go to Photo, Edit in, Silver Efex. This is the latest version of Silver Efex. Just hit OK. And Silver Efex, if you're not feeling creative later, let's make this a little bigger and move the half slider over here. And well, let's see, what have we got here? We have all these presets. Let's open up the presets and you can scroll through them and see if any of them speak to you. And as we scroll down, let's see what high structure smooth looks like. Nah. Ooh, low key. That's got some potential. It needs to be brought up a bit, but that's a potential. What else? Grad ND. Yeah, maybe. I'm full dynamic harsh. Let's see. Again, you can see each one has a different feel to it. I'm kind of liking what we had in Lightroom so far. Although, let's try wet rocks. Huh. What do you think, Di? Yeah, I'm not liking wet rocks that much. Let's go back. Let's let's see Grad ND. That's a little I like it, but the sky's too dark. Let's go back to low key. That's kind of interesting. I think that's the winner for this one. And again, we can always change stuff in Silver Efex. You get to see the before and the after. I do want this to be a little bit brighter though, I think. So the question is, do I want to do it here or do I want to do it in Lightroom? And honestly, I think it's probably easier in Lightroom. I am going to, let's take a look at the histogram here. You know, that looks pretty good. Let's bring the brightness up a little bit. And dynamic brightness brings it up a bit much. Actually, I do kind of like that. Everything else I think I would save. Here's a however, though. Like Nik Efex, Silver Efex does have some interesting stuff over here, like toning, for example. So if I click on selective toning, that now shows up over here. Um, I could also do some coloring, actual toning. And if I go to toning, so what color, if you wanted to make this a black and white, I don't think of seascapes as being sepia colored. However, there was a style of black and white printing called selenium, which is right here, which is kind of like a steel blue. You 1, 2, 3, I have 3 different levels of it. I'm going to stick with the lowest one, and you can adjust the strength of it just with a smidge. And what that does is it just makes it a little bit of a cooler gray. And then do you want the paper to take it on as well, which means the pure white areas? As I bring this up, I can mess with just the whites. I think that's good. And here's the paper toning. Now, paper toning was fine the way it was. So let's hit apply, and this will send this one into Lightroom. And let's see what this looks like. And as I look at it, I think the sky needs to be darker. So you see, we're going to have to do more work here. And I think, honestly, Lightroom was the best choice for this. But let's do the sky, and we'll just bring the sky brightness down a bit. And I think a vignette, and I think that might be, I think we might be done after that. So let's add a vignette here under effects. Come on, under effects. There we go. Darken that. And let's take a look at the difference between what we've got here. I've got a couple of different variations. So here's the original color. And again, the reason I love this, I love all of the things that are going on here in the color. But if you wanted to focus on the entire scene, black and white's not bad. There's one. So that's pretty cool. Different, different focus. And then kind of halfway in between the two. I think I like that one best. I think that's the answer. But anyway, really just to show the difference between the color and the black and white. This is a subject that works both ways. It just depends on the mood you want to present. And for it to work, you can't have too much. If there's too much going on in an image, it's not going to work. If you've got a sky filled with lots of clouds, probably not going to work. Now, conversely, let's do one other one just real quickly. You may have seen this before. This was the cover of my landscape book. Let's do this one as a black and white. So we'll click on B and W here. And yeah, boring. So we'll go down to the slider again. And what do we want to darken? Well, I think actually I want to brighten the sea a bit and maybe the sand. So let's click on there. Why is my Lightroom giving me a hard time? All right, we'll look. Okay, yeah, bringing up the sand a little bit. That's good. And yep, I'll be with Linda in a second. And let's lighten up the area below the clouds. Yeah, that's not terrible. Linda has a let's on this question. Yeah, so the question was that Nik made a lot of changes in version 8. Is it worth it? One, yeah, definitely. And two, as you upgrade Lightroom and Photoshop, they typically intentionally do not keep up that, so that requires you to get 8, the latest version. So they're mildly slimy that way, but it is worth it. And what you're seeing is version 8. So as we look at this, now this is a little dingy down here, and I think this could use a little more maybe clarity. So let's get a brush K, and I'm going to put auto mask on. I want to get this little bit of surf here and brighten it up. I don't want to make the very edge quite as bright. So why not a tiny little brush for some reason? Come on, computer, catch up. Yeah, let's get all this. And now I'm going to turn down the flow to 75% to add this little last part. You would think 75% would not be much of a drop off. It actually really is. So now let's bring the brightness up on that, and that looks better. And notice how, even though I selected this, since it's at 75%, it's not as bright. I don't want to encourage the viewer to leave the image. I still maybe want to do it one more time. So I'm going to hit K one more time and select this area again and just brighten that up a little bit, just so I have a little more control over the rest of the area. Where's my bright exposure slider? Let's bring that in. Oh, where'd you go? Not that one. Where are you? That one. Okay. Let's bring the brightness up just on that a little more. I want it a little darker, but not that much. And then I mentioned also in the middle, let's hit K one more time. Where's my light? Okay, and I'm going to come right across through here, just the kind of the entire ocean, and let's scroll down and add some clarity to this. Yeah, I think it could stand a little clarity. And also, as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing some other areas that are dark again. So K one more time. I'm going to keep hitting that K button, get used to it, because that's our brush. As soon as it catches up, some reason things are running slowly tonight. Come on, computer. Might be time to reinstall Lightroom. By the way, if you have Lightroom starting to slow down, uh, go ahead and uninstall it. It won't hurt anything. You're not going to lose any images. And just uninstall it and reinstall it from the Creative Cloud app. Okay, so those two areas I thought were going a little too dark. Let's bring those up a little bit. Yeah, that's better. And good. You know, still, I think this is a little too bright. So I'm going to use a shift, an M. We're going to do a linear gradient. I'm going to follow the angle of the beach a little bit and just darken that a smidge. So we'll have that one kind of lighter stripe above that. Okay. So let's see what we got here. I'm curious to see what you guys think. So here's our black and white. It's not terrible. Personally, I think the whole story about this place was the colors, which was that. Um, Although now I'm looking at this particular, hello, wow. Did you guys see that? Did you see my screen just go to sleep? I must have hit a sleep corner. As I'm looking at this oh, I'm seeing this is an old JPEG. So the color on this one's or I that whole edit was on a JPEG. That's why it's a little screwed up. Okay. This is too blue. In fact, it's bothering me enough that I have to fix it. So let's get a brush again, and I'm going to select in through here. It's just gone too blue. So we'll scroll down in the colors and we'll add some yellow into it just to get out some of the blue because it's too blue. Maybe even desaturate it, and I'll bring the brightness up a smidge. There we go. That looks better. Okay. So again, color versus the black and white on this one. It's personal preference, and it just really comes down to what is the mood you want to create. Um, this one's kind of about the entire scene. This one is more focused on just the lights, the beams of light coming down through the clouds. So again, what story do you want to tell? Any questions? All right, moving on. Speaking of skies, shot of monument. Up question. Yes. Paula wants to know, do I want to teach a Nik class? Who are you asking for, Paula? For you or just for the group? She's not. You got to type it in, Paula, or unmute yourself, one of the two. Would you guys be interested in a Nik class?
Both.
Both. Okay. Yeah, I've had a relationship with the people that run Nik for years, and they started doing something that bothered me. I've done classes for them, and they said, "Oh yeah, we want you to do classes again. We just need you to put this particular bit of code on your website so that we can track everybody that visits your site." So I said, "No, we're not doing that." So I would be happy to do it without Nik involved, without it's actually DxO. So if you guys are interested in that, I can see about doing a Nik Silver Efex, Color Efex, Viveza, H whatever. We can do as many of them as you want. So yes, yeah. If you guys are interested in that, just put a note in the chat so we can see it. All right. So virtual copies. So I think Basil, I think it was you asked, why do I duplicate the background? Again, it's in Photoshop. That's so I have that untouched version should I need to get back to it. In Lightroom, the way I do that is with Command or Control apostrophe, which creates a virtual copy. And the reason I do that is so that when I make a change, I can bounce back and forth between the starting point and where I am at the moment. Just for giggles, I'm going to try to see if this software will record one more time. Are you going to cooperate? Or is it there? I got a notice from them just before I signed on with you guys. Oh, there's a new version of ScreenFlow, which is the software up here that I use for recording the screen. And of course, it's a paid upgrade. Do you want to upgrade? Yeah, well, and now they're making it not work. So anyway, I think this is a raw file. Yes, this is a raw file. This is a Sony file from early on. This looks like the first A7R. This was in 2015. Okay. So let's just do a really basic, real quick edit. We have a very dramatic sky up here. And if I'm thinking black and white, when you're going to do a black and white conversion, I personally think you're better off doing your color edit first. Get the tones that way you want them, get the contrast the way you want them. And the high contrast stuff for a landscape is going to work really well as a black and white. But still need to do the edit in color first. So I'm going to select the sky. I've got a really dramatic sky here. So I'm thinking some dehaze. Oh yeah, look at that. How cool is that sky? And I'm also kind of pre-visualizing that this is going to end up being a black and white sky, as cool as that sky is. All right, the foreground, kind of a tough foreground. This is kind of mid-sunset at Monument Valley with a passing storm on top of that. Very dramatic day. So brush, let's open up all this stuff. So I just have a brush with auto mask on. Let's bring the exposure up for the foreground. And again, I'm doing this edit based on what is this going to look like as a black and white. So I want to open up that foreground. I can always darken it, but I want to bring those shadows. I want to see all of the vegetation here. All right. We also have this one piece of the Monument Valley that's way too bright. I guess this is what it really looked like. If you've ever been to Monument Valley, this is the thing. This is called Merrick Butte. Whoops, I just added it into my previous edit. Let's hit K for a new edit, and let's select this area, and I need to bring this down. And as I bring it down, it changes the color a bit. Again, we're going to black and white this, but it's lost the shadows. So let's add a bunch of clarity into this and some dehaze. And we're going to add some blacks. I really want to get the shadows, the blacks and the shadows to start to come out. And then I'll bring the exposure back up a smidge. The color is off. It's gone a little too orange for me. And again, yes, I know this is going to end up being a black and white, but I still want to even the tones out because if I don't, this is right where your eye is going to go without you having any say in it. So I'm going to actually bring up the blacks and open up the shadows. And Diane's laughing over here, so somebody must have had some kind of comment.
Just all the yeses and the yes, yes,
Oh,
yes,
all the
yes, and
okay.
nays.
Okay. All right. So what else do I need to adjust here? I think that one's pretty good. Back in here, there's some haze into this very deep part of the park. So let's hit K again and get this area here. Let's bring that up a little bit and let's put the blacks back in. Yes. And I think that's pretty good. Is this thing tilted a little bit? Let's hit R to take a look, and I'm going to just watch what the monuments do. I know this is West Mitten. I know this thing's pretty straight up and down. So let's get that one little thumb sticking up. Let's get that right. As far as cropping, I'm not concerned yet. We'll save that for the end. I always save my cropping for Lightroom at the very end. Okay. All right. Now so we just went from here to here. Look at that sky. And again, is this how I would edit it as a color image? No, but I want this to be a black and white. So I'm gonna leave that one. I'm gonna make a virtual copy of that again. Just again, command apostrophe, and let's go to black and white on this one. And yeah, you can see this is already starting out pretty cool. Let's go to the black and white panel, get our adjustment slider, and I want to bring that down a little bit. And how about the sky? Let's see. Can we bring up parts of the sky up and down? Yes. Let's make that nice and dark. And we still have our adjustment tools that we had when we were in color. So I can still select the sky. So let's do that. Let's go up to our masks and select the sky. And I think I want to add more contrast to it. So let's bring it up a bit and add more contrast. We're going to make this crazy dramatic sky. All right, so now let's duplicate and invert that mask so we can get everything but the sky and decide if we need to add some more contrast to that. Yeah, we did. We needed a lot more contrast to that. There's also parts of the image I don't want to keep. I'm not really going to keep all this stuff on the bottom, so I'm not worrying about it. But this thing, Merrick Butte here, still seems to be giving us a hard time It needs to come down. Oh, there we go. I want to take away the emphasis of it. And I'm going to hit K again and select this piece. This is actually East Mitten or Little Mitten. Let's add some clarity to this one. And let's do a crop. And kind of what I wanted to show you is that sometimes you're going to go through a lot of work and you're going to be done with it and you're going to think, yeah, I'm not sure if that really worked. I'm going to leave that little bit over on the right. And let's take a look. Let's see what it looks like full screen. And sometimes you're just going to see it just needs to be bigger. And as cool as this is, well, you can see I've got a bunch of spots here. I'm not going to bother because I don't think it justifies doing any more. As cool as the sky is, I personally think that this image works better as a color image. And what I would do would be to crop the color image something like this. The sky, even though this is Monument Valley, the sky is the star here. And I think what I would do is do a graduated filter up from the bottom all the way up like this. I would actually bring the saturation down here. So again, you might want to do black and whites, but sometimes the scene just doesn't support it. So let's bring the saturation down a bit. Yep, that looks better. And the contrast. And I think for something like this, we'll go through the three choices. And I think you'll agree that this image is one that just doesn't work as well as a black and white. So here's the original. There's the color edit as it draws in. There's the color edit. And then there's the black and white. And the black and white just doesn't have enough in it, is my opinion on this. So sometimes it's not going to work. Now, is there a way to make this work? I'm seeing something. Do you guys see anything in here? Let's command apostrophe this because I'm seeing an image. It's just not this entire thing. Let's hit the crop tool because when you're going to create a black and white, it's simple is better. And there's a lot of stuff in here. But what happens if we do this? And take advantage of that sky. And maybe crop it like there. And give it a big vignette. And let's look at, does something like that work? That might work a little bit better. But again, is it the perfect image for doing a black and white? No. And if you want to pursue it any further, you're going to eventually hit a point and realize it's not going to work. But let's see one that really does work. It's time for the main course. And I was actually looking for some interesting images to share with you guys. And I found one that I had never done anything with. This is going back a ways because the raw file looks terrible. And there's some kind of, I don't know, big thing up here. That's got to go. So let's just hit the Q key for our removal. And why isn't my removal opening up? There we go. I just want the Band-Aid one, just the basic. There's no reason to AI that. Okay. So that looks really terrible. And this is a cool place. Again, a dramatic sky. This is Trim Castle in Ireland. And wow, let's go to the basics. Let's bring the highlights all the way down and we'll bring the shadows all the way up. And we're going to have to do the sky and the foreground separately. So let's select the sky and bring the exposure of that thing down and the highlights again. We got to get the whites and the highlights down as well because there's a dramatic sky there. A storm had just passed. So let's add some clarity and some dehaze to that sky. And now we're getting somewhere. Now, I'm already thinking about the final image. This is too far away. The grass is bigger than the castle is. This is going to end up being the subject, something in here. And look at the clouds behind it. They are beautiful. We're not going to end up using any of this stuff up here, so I'm not going to concern myself. Let's go ahead and get a brush, and I'm going to select the actual castle buildings, and I'm going to be sloppy about it. I don't care if it touches the sky. There's a church steeple over here. Why don't I care? Because Lightroom's masking is so good with this stuff. I just come up to the mask, click on subtract, and tell it, well, subtract the sky out of that, and it cleans it up for us. So let's bring the exposure up on here. And oh, there we go. Now there's some distortion. You can see how things are leaning in a little bit. We need to vertically fix this. So let's hit enter, enter, and come down to transform. And we'll go to the vertical slider and let's straighten this thing out a little bit. Let's get the towers straight up and down. And I could concern myself with the X and Y offset. I don't really care because we're going to crop in a lot on this. So let's just hit there. All right, so again, you're still thinking there's nothing here. So let's just cut to the chase and start a crop. And I want it to be about the castle. And again, we got plenty of resolution to play with in here. So I don't think I want that church steeple. I think I'm going to cut in just from that, figure out what it is you want to be the subject. And I think the castle, this part of it over here, and typically you want to have three elements because if you get two, you start getting like a field goal. I'm going to call this brush over here my third element. And there's still a little bit too much of it, but you can see now we've got something we can work with. So how do we direct it? Again, I'm going to do my first directing on the color image. So let's get our brush again. And I'll get a nice big one. And I want to darken the very foreground of this grass here. Sum up into that. Come on, Lightroom. And let's bring the exposure down. There we go. I want to highlight the towers here. So where else do we want to go? I'm going to do a little bit of light painting while we're here. Let's hit K again. And I'm thinking this area here is a little too bright. Somehow some of this brush, I'm going to have to clean that up a little bit. Up in here is too bright. And I'm going to hold down the Alt key, which will give us the minus. And I'm going to bring back this little part of the castle ruins. All right, so let's bring that down. And also the very tip of the castle's gone kind of dark. So let's zoom in on that. Let's hit K again. I'm going to add to that. Let's make these towers a little bit brighter. And again, if it draws out the lines a little bit, that's okay. We just tell Lightroom, subtract the sky. So subtract the sky, and it cleans that up. And let's open that up. There we go. Now we have some kind of slightly weird colors on the castle. Again, I don't care because this is going to be black and white. We do have some spots. There's a spot right there. Actually, it might be a bird. We'll just use the normal Band-Aid for that one. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can do something with this as a black and white. And I didn't even let me make a virtual copy of this. Even what we've done so far is pretty dramatic. Let's reset that one. If we go full screen, that's the raw file we started with, and we are now here. And that's kind of cool. I mean, we could work with that. So yeah, in the detail up, there's somebody wearing green clothing there. Let's go out of full screen. Let's take this and let's make a virtual copy of that one. Again, so just so we can show the progression. And let's go up to basics. And we're going to use our black and white converter again, right here in Lightroom. Okay, black and white. Let's see how Lightroom does. And actually in this one, it's not terrible. Let's add some contrast to it. Maybe bring up the exposure a smidge and bring the shadows down. And a vignette. There's not, now one thing, if you remember when we were dealing with this image, is there's not a lot of color in it. We could make the greens lighter or darker though. So let's go back to our black and white panel, get our adjustment tool here. Let's see what happens if we push up on these, maybe a little bit. But honestly, I think I kind of like it. But let's see if Nik has a different take on this. So let's take the one we just did in color and go to edit in. Oh, wrong one. I chose Viveza. Want photo edit in Silver Efex. Let's see what and again, if you're not sure which way to go, the beauty of Silver Efex is all those presets they present you that you can scroll through and kind of see. Let's click on the presets. Let's see as we scroll down. High contrast, harsh. Whoop, let's get rid of our half and half. That's too harsh. High structure, kind of interesting. High structure, smooth. Ooh, I think I like that. Let's see what else we get. Again, Diane and I had favorites. One of our favorites for landscapes is, oh, let's see, high dynamic, full dynamic. Yeah, wet rocks. So where's wet rocks? In this case, wet rocks is cool, but it's too dark. So I think the answer is the high structure. So let's go back to the high structure harsh. And look at, just by choosing that, look what it did. It went from there to there. And look at those clouds. Are they supernatural? Absolutely. But that's okay. We're creating a bit of artwork here. While we're here, let's have some fun. Yeah, let's have some fun. Let's see. If we go to filters, um, let's go to image borders. And you click on it here and it shows up over here. I don't know who redesigned this thing. I hate this new design, but anyway, image borders. So they still never fixed this because the borders are named helpfully type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So you got to scroll through. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Always like 4. 5 is kind of small. 6 is good. Yeah, never a fan of 7. 8, no. 9. So as I go through these, you guys can type in what you think, which number, and then the last ones are just white and black. Anybody like anything better than 4? No? 4 it is. Now, after you do that, though, look, if you look underneath, you have size, spread, and style. So if you change the size, it's how much white it's going to take away. So you can decide how much border you want. I'm just going to use a little bit. The spread is how far it's going to come into the image. You can have it just be a little subtle or really heavy. I'm going to keep it on the subtle side. And then there's clean versus rough. How rough do you want the edges? I kind of like the rough edges. Now, the good part of it is this is really cool, but you better be sure that this is the aspect ratio you want for your final image because this is built into it. We're creating a new image here. And also, by the way, we had our tonings. Let's click on toning. Would this work as a slight sepia? What do you think? Let's find out. My favorite one, and this will come as a surprise to no one, is called coffee. Coffee right here, and I'm going to bring the strength down. So it's just very slightly warm. And any complaints about that? No? Is there some light painting I further want to do in this? Yes, but I think this is good. So I'm going to hit apply. And it's going to really bring life into an image that needed it. So here we are back in Lightroom. What can we do? Let's do some light painting. So I'm going to get brush again, hit K. And where are the areas that are too bright? I want to create some light paths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over top of the areas that are already a little dark. And I'm going to make them a little darker. This thing up here got a little bit light. I'm going to make it darker. And this little shadows in here, I want those nice and dark. And I'm leaving that one open because I want to provide a little bit of a light path up to the castle. So let's bring these down. Oh, yes. Uh, these right here in front of this ruin are have gone a little too dark, so let's hit K again. Let's just get these and bring them up a little bit, make them not quite, because here's the thing. If something is so dark that it's approaching black, that's going to draw the eye as well. Your eye's going to go to the brightest things, and if there's one big black thing, it's going to go to that as well. So, you know, I think enough is enough. And let's take a look at the sequence from our raw, which is right, you're not going to, boy, Lightroom's just not cooperating tonight. Okay, let's go full screen. There's our raw file. And you would have, I'm sure if you took images like this, well, this was 2015, so 11 years ago, and this would have been a complete throwaway. Yet, with a bit of a crop and some sliders and painting in Lightroom, we got this. That's kind of cool. Then we converted this in Lightroom to a black and white and ended up with that. Why did I crop it this way? Again, it's a horizontal pano now. You're coming up, you've got the big tower, the smaller tower, and then this big brush over here keeps you from leaving the image. Then we took it one more time and brought it into Silver Efex and got that, which adds pop to it. And look at the difference. You might like this one, but you like that one until you saw that one. And that's pretty cool. And when you think that we started out with that and we transformed that into that image with the same file is pretty remarkable. And just me staring at that, that's cool. That deserves a print. Oh, I forgot something. No, I'm not going to go there. I'll do it one more. I'll do the for dessert. I'll do it to dessert. There was one other effect I wanted to do, which means dessert. It's 8:34. Can we keep going? Questions? Yes, question.
Do you choose your landscape images to convert to black and white by the contrast in the sky?
So the question was, do I choose my black and whites to convert by the texture in the sky? Um, Not always. I would say frequently, yes, but you can have too much. You can have, in fact, actually, I had an image from last photography kitchen that I did not use. Let me see. I think it's in here. Let me make these smaller. That I started to do as a conversion, and it was a complete fail. Nope, it's not here. Um, Dramatic skies do work, but sometimes they can be too busy. Let's take this one. Believe it or not, this is the same castle that we were just working on from the opposite side. This is from across the river. The first one was down over this way on the other side of the castle. Something, that actually might work as a black and white. Let's find out. This actually might work, but I had a Grand Teton shot that had so many clouds in it that it didn't differentiate, and the amount of colors helps as well. If you have an image that's kind of monotonish, they don't make good black and white conversions. So let's go back into develop. Let's take a look at this as a black and white. And again, the default doesn't work. You can see it's just kind of gone blah. Uh, let's go ahead to our black and white panel and see what happens when we bring the sky down. And again, this would happen in a black and white film if you were using say, an orange filter. And you'd have to go pretty dark with it. And as I'm looking at this, to me, I think there's a little too much going on with the reflection and all the brush that this one doesn't work as a black and white. There's too much. In the other one, the sky was actually almost the competing subject, but for some reason it worked. And I'd like to say I always know before I start. The honest answer is I don't. Sometimes I'm surprised as you are when I see where these things go. And when I started with this image, I honestly had no idea if it was going to work until I did the color part. And once I got to here, then I could see the black and white. It's a relatively simple subject, although there's a lot of fine details here. But tonally wise, it's relatively simple. I knew the sky wasn't going to even change a whole heck of a lot. It was a matter of whether the greens were going to be different enough from the tonality of the sky. And in this case, they worked out just fine. So, yes, another question. When do I use exposure versus shadows? Let's take a look at the histogram up here. Let's go into the basic panel. Exposure is the same as grabbing the middle of the file. Notice up in the histogram, if I put the cursor dead center, underneath the histogram, it says exposure. So it's called exposure, but it's really midtones. It's actually badly named. If I drag off to the left, I get the shadows. And then if I go all the way to the left, I get the blacks. So what they're calling exposure is actually midtones. That's the difference, then highlights and whites. So if I come over to shadows and open this up and push it, you can see as I come back and forth, the shadows are opening up first. Where if I come to exposure or midtones, then everything lightens up in the middle. Did that clear that up? Like, exposure is a bad word for it. It's midtones versus shadows. What do you want? So what shadows will do is it will focus on the images in the histogram. Can you see the band? I don't know how well it shows up on your screen. When I go to shadows, you see the band that appears above it. It's showing those are the tones that are going to be moved the most when I adjust it. And by the way, if you didn't know this, you can adjust. You don't have to touch the sliders. You can actually do it in the histogram. If I click where it says shadows and push up, notice the shadow slider moves. It's another way of doing the same thing. And when I go to exposure, notice how the midtones shift. Was that clear? Did that answer your question? I'm going to say yes. Okay. Let's get to some dessert because we're running over, but there's something else I wanted to show you in Nik Silver Efex. It's really cool. Okay. Actually, believe it or not, from that scene where we were seeing the castle over the river, this is turning around 180 degrees. This is actually right behind that. This is called the Yellow Tower. And again, same kind of thing. I would do my basic edits to this. This is actually the raw file. I'd add some clarity and probably do the dehaze to the sky alone. I'll bring up the shadows a little bit. The color's off a little bit. I think it's gone a little too yellow. I'm not going to concern myself too much with it, but let's add a little blue. Let's go ahead and get the sky. And I'm going to add some dehaze. Again, thinking black and white. Now, this isn't terrible. In fact, I like the color in it. I think the greens are still a little too yellow from my remembrance, and the sky is a little cyan for me. So we'll come down, I'll hit enter on these. I'll come down to the color mixer. Let's get the eyedropper and select the sky first. And you can see in the upside down wedge of the blues, it's a little over to the cyan more than I like it. I'm going to push that over to the right a little. Darken it up, but I'm also going to bring the saturation a bit because this is Ireland. They don't typically get super crazy deep blue skies. And then for the foreground, I'll do that again. Let's get into this green, which again, I thought was looking a little too yellow. Let's bring it over to green. And ow, that looks so much better. In fact, let me virtual copy that so I can reset so you can see what we've accomplished. Just, you probably forgot already, but we went from there to there. I mean, look how much more life there is on that. But wait, there's more. Compositionally, I'm probably going to tighten this up a little bit. There's too much blue above it, but this is screaming for a Nik Silver Efex conversion. So let's go to, and why do I say that? It's a simple subject. Yes, there's a lot going on in the sky, but look, there's just the tower, and this is the old town gate that you would go through. There used to be a wall around the town here. That's how you would get into the town. This would be guarded. That's really it. There's just these two pieces. Question. You mean here? Russ, are you talking about this thing over here? Right over here? Would I remove that?
I'm sorry, it's on the other
Oh, the other image?
the last picture.
You mean the black and this one?
That one, yeah. The
Would
modern
I
loop
get rid of this
lines.
stuff? Yeah, I actually did when I first did this. In fact, there's this back here.
Yeah. Looks like a
Oh,
medical center.
okay, watch
Yeah.
as it let it draw in. Yeah. I did it to my final. There's the actual what I had done.
Okay.
So the answer is yes.
Okay,
So there's
thank
the
you.
before and after. That was a little AI at work. But yes, good catch.
Thank you.
I didn't do it for your image, but yeah, look, there's
Yeah.
my yeah. So I did get rid of that stuff. So yes, I would I get rid of that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
thank
don't
you.
care if
Yeah.
it really was there or not.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, so where were we? Right here. From here, and you could say the same thing here. This is actually not new. This is actually part of this was a monastery at one point. Um, but is it a distraction? Yeah, it is slightly, and I'm sure it's bothering Russ, I can tell. So let's just get rid of it. So I'll just draw around this. It's just this one little, looks like a, what do you call them? Die? Chimney stack? Chimney pot. It's a big chimney pot apparently on top of that tower. So let's see. One, two, three. Three's good. All right. And we'll zoom out of that. And again, this is going to end up as a black and white. Okay. Whoops, stop zooming in. Oh, we have a spot. There's a spot over here. So let's get rid of the spot. So again, spots are generally best gotten rid of just with the regular Band-Aid tool. Just make it a little bigger than the spot and click. And I can hit Q and A. Q is the spot removal tool. A is show me the spots. And let's see if we can find another one. A turns it to this black and white thing. And you just scroll around and look for a perfect circle with a hole in the middle. It looks like a donut floating in the sky. And if you don't see anything now, there must have just been one spot on this image. Is this thing a spot? You can hit A to toggle off, and you see, no, it's just part of a cloud. Okay, so that we got rid of the one spot. Let's send this into Silver Efex. So photo edit in Silver Efex and edit. And again, for black and white conversions, it's hard to beat Silver Efex. Okay, let's back off on the zoom so we can see the whole thing. All right. And again, this is the before after slider. This is a compare thing. If you look up top here, you've got two different images, split half and half or split up and down. I just usually do the half and half and drag it off to the side. And again, click on the presets and see if there's something that's going to kind of get you where you want. Let's look at nope, that's too harsh. But again, you might like this and just find it's too strong. You can always go into the sliders on the right side and fix. But ooh, high structure, harsh, smooth. I'll let Diane chime on that. You like smooth or harsh better on this? Yeah, I think so, smooth. I think the smooth one's better. Let's see if anything else down here. Yeah, um, let's see the full dynamic. Nope, Diane was right. High structure, smooth. All right, so there's our black and white starting point. And look at the difference, what it's done for the image. Great. However, we still have these same sensitivities. So if you wanted to make the blues darker, look, I can drag the blue slider over, but I think I want my final editing to take place in Lightroom for this because I have something in mind. Let's bring the shadows up a little bit more. But the thing I wanted to do here in Silver Efex that it is by far the best at, and that's still pretty cool just doing that. And that is, let's go, where are my filters? And that is under, where the heck is it under? Is it under toning or vignette or image borders? Let's see, image borders. Is that where it is? No, I can't even remember where the damn thing is. Clear view, selection, no. Where's my grain, damn it? Forget where, I'm just going to open them all. Let's see, let's just open them all up on the right. Oh, duh, grain. Okay. So when you choose grain, you have these numbers to play with. Let's get rid of the toning. Oh, and burn edges. Burn edges is like a vignette, but you have control of left and right and up and down separately. Clear view, no, we'll get rid of that. Where's the grain I'm after, damn it? Okay, here it is. So we've got film grain, and there's an intensity and a grain size, and there's different way you can actually pick a film. If there was a film, you guys, do you guys remember Tri-X? Let's see, where's Tri-X? Kodak Tri-X 400. Do you remember that? Had a lovely grain to it, but you might like it and decide, gee, I want the grain bigger. And how do you know? Let's go to 100%. Let's look up at the sky. Yeah. If you want it grainier. Oh, look at that. See how the grain, if I bring the grain size down, you barely see it. You bring it up. Now you're seeing the grain, and you might have thought of it as like noise. But for those of us that used to do darkroom stuff, black and whites without grain just don't look right. Yeah, you could shoot a low ISO black and white film and there'd be virtually no grain, but I don't know. There's something to me, if you ever did black and white photography, that you need some grain in that sky. And yeah, that's what I need. That's what I wanted to. Lightroom will do grain. It doesn't do it anywhere near as well, though. So let's go ahead and save this image back into Lightroom, and then we'll do a little bit of light painting and cropping to finish this off. Okay, so there's our black and white. Let's go up to basics. I want to bring the highlights down a little bit more, make it a little more contrasty. Oh, that looks better. And the foreground, it was brighter, but I don't want it that bright. So let's get a big brush. So I hit K. I said I hit K. Where's my K? Come on, Lightroom. It's taking its time. Okay. All right, there it is. Finally, it's showing up now. Let's get a nice big brush. And we're at 100%. All right, I'm going to just pick this foreground here. That needs to darken up a little bit because we can't use the black and white slider panel anymore because when we brought this image in from Silver Efex, it was no longer a color image. It was just purely black and white. And on the tower itself, so these shadows here are maybe a little dark. So let's hit K again. Let's get those and back in here. Let's bring those up a little bit. That's better. And the tower itself, what do you think, Di? You're seeing it over there. Does it need to be a little brighter on the face? All right, so we're going to brighten up the face of the tower. That was too much. Let's undo that. And let's hit K again and start again. So we're going to take the face of the tower. I got a little sloppy. So again, subtract the sky. And let's bring that up a little bit. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm also going to decrease the blacks to make the grain of it a little better. I'm also going to open up the shadow a little bit on the side closest to the front, right over in here. Let's brighten that up just a little bit, just to add some dimension. Oh, look at that. Look how that adds dimension to that. That is great. This one little bush up here is a little too dark, and I think I'm just going to add it to what we've just done. And this is still a little too dark in here. And if something black attracts your eye and you don't want the eye to go there, that's a problem. In fact, let's go to the gate and let's get inside here as well. Oh, look at that, how much dimension that adds. Just to bring in there. Okay, wonderful. So let's hit crop. Let's crop it to what it needs. We don't need so much sky over top. We don't need so much foreground. We want the castle and the ruins of the gate to be the stars of this image. So let's put them in a good spot. And I think that's probably about there. You need enough underneath the tower to support it, but not so much that it's almost the size. Maybe about there. And let's add a vignette to this one. And I think we're good. Let's go through the sequence again. So here's our black and white. We started out with that. We did our color edit to the image, which added some pop to it. But look at the black and white. It just has so much more presence. And if you were curious, I had done one earlier. I'll cut to the chase. After I had done one earlier when I was doing it, I already showed you this effect. I added a border to this one as well. And I added a little bit of a sepia to it. And that's my final. And look at all the grain in the clouds. That was intentionally added. And to me, that looks like a great black and white. So there's the difference that from there with the border and adding, of course, the coffee color to it. And it just,
Historical Irish.
there we go. Yes. Diane's saying it looks historical. Not hysterical, historical. But again, one last time, let's just take a look. So that was my final edit. And consider we started with that. And that's a pretty dramatic change. And here's the one we just did together, which I like. But I think this image really works with the border and the slight coffee color. What do you think, Di? Yeah? Okay. Question?
Sheila said,
Did I add a vignette to this one? I don't remember. I've forgotten already. Let's take a look. Let's get out of full. Yeah, there's a light one. Maybe a heavier one would do. Let's see. Yeah, I did add a vignette. Here it is. In fact, if you can't even see it, but watch, stop zooming in. If I turn it off temporarily, you can see it. There's the before and after. So yes, there's a vignette here. Okay, so the question was when I was doing the edit in here. In fact, let's go up to that panel. Let me find where it was. I think it was in here. Yeah, right here. There's the panel I had done. So what I had done was I brought it up with exposure. Could I have done it with shadow? Let's find out. I'm going to double click on the word exposure and reset it. And that puts those back. Let's bring it up with shadows. And you can see it does come up, but not quite as violently as I was after. Because there is some highlights. See how when I bring it up with exposure, it takes the midtones along with it. And sometimes when you're doing shadows, if you're just doing the shadows, yeah, it's going to bring the shadows up. But I wanted a little bit of area interest to it. I wanted to bring the midtones up with it as well. So I could have done both. I could have added the shadows first and then brought up the midtones. And you can see how that kind of helps me get a line, a subliminal piece of light that is drawing you up to that tower. So is it that important if you choose exposure or shadows? It's going to be a little bit subjective. I intuitively I looked at that and I thought exposure. In fact, I'm going to turn off the shadow one and just do exposure, and you can see how it just brings up the surrounding areas better than if I had done it with just shadows. It brings up the darker, but it leaves the midtones alone, and it's not achieving that. So there it is with shadows. Now let's bring it up with exposure, and you see how the areas around it come up with it because it's pushing off to the right as far as brightness goes, and it brought the stuff around it up, and that had the effect of creating a little bit lighter area here that when you look at it full screen, notice this, since this got lighter, it's helping you, leading you subliminally to the tower. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Wow, it's already 9 o'clock. How time flies. I'll just show you some images I did not get to. I'll show you a couple. I have a portrait in here too, but I have another sequence. Let's go full screen here. So this was the raw file. Oh, Diane just lost everything. You guys still see my screen? We're having some weirdnesses here, above normal. So again, a Monument Valley shot looks really kind of flat. There's adding the color. And does that work as a color image? Yes, but here it is as a black and white, and I think it works so much better. Look at the difference. Now, what did I do with this? I painted with light up this little fall so that it led you right to this thing, which happens to be called the elephant, which makes no sense because the Navajo had never seen elephants when they named these things. So, and then a portrait when we were doing portrait work back in the pre-COVID days. That I saw her kind of as kind of a flapper outfit. So we,
He was a dancer.
yeah, she was a dancer too, and softened her up and sepia, go coffeeed her to go from there to there. And this is like screaming for some uh, destruction. Don't you think? Like some torn edges and some pieces missing. It actually turned it into something that looked like it needed to be uh, fixed. Anyway, oh, that was a lot. Wow, did you guys enjoy that? Did you see some stuff in there? I didn't even do any Photoshop black and white stuff really. Um, there's a couple of things I want to show you in Photoshop that could be really interesting. In fact, just for giggles, I'm going to take this one. No, they're not cropped the same. This one and that one. Let's see. Yeah, let me take these two. I'm going to go to edit in Photoshop, but I'm not going to open them in Photoshop. I'm going to open them as layers in Photoshop. I want each of these to be exactly one on top of the other, which is not that. Next photography kitchen, yes, is October 8th. Okay, so here come our two images into Photoshop or not. All right, it's going to make me, oh, I forgot to go to grid view to do that. So, okay. All right. So I'll just do a copy, select all copy, and then and paste it. Okay. So I just pasted that on top of this. So that's the black and white and the color together. I'm going to put the black and white one on top and change the blending mode from normal to luminosity, and then bring the opacity down. And this can create a really interesting effect. And I'm also going to bring the saturation down a bit. Let's bring it down a smidge, saturation, just to kind of show you what you can do. You can use the black and white as a luminosity mask, which turned the color image from that to that. See how it adds the pop to it? And then bring in the saturation. It creates an interesting effect, something you can do with black and white images to make your color ones. It kind of makes it look like an old-fashioned, one of those old postcards. It's kind of an interesting effect. So I'll show you that again next time around. There's some interesting things you can do with this technique. Any other questions? It's time. It's okay. You like the Nik stuff? It's time for me to go have dessert because I didn't have a proper dinner tonight. We just munched on leftovers. So it's dessert time. So I'm going to go do that. So any last questions? If not, we will see you again October 8th because on Sunday we are flying to Zurich. And I look forward to having a lot of interesting images for you from our travels in Switzerland, France, and then in Ireland. For those of you that have been with us on our Ireland trips, Diane and I spoke to Gordon earlier, and he sends his greetings to everybody. We're looking forward to seeing him again. For those of you who haven't been, Gordon is our guide and driver for our Irish and Scottish tours and has been so for, I think this is our, 15th year with him?
I think so.
So we've been working with the same guy for 15 years. So yeah, we know him well. So, all right, that's it for me tonight. I will say, gute Nacht and see you again in October. But we will be getting email if you got any questions, and we will take the recording and put it together and get it out to you along with the images that were used. Yes. Before we leave, we'll do that. So I thank you for joining me. I hope you had some
Thank
fun.
you. Safe travels, Joe.
Thank you much. I appreciate that. And,
Enjoy.
yeah, we'll see you in 4 weeks.
Thank
Until
you.
then, everybody be well.
Thanks.
Really
See you on
enjoyed
the
it.
back end.
Don't forget to take Diane.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Like I could forget her.
All right, buddy. Thank
All
you.
right. Good night,
Catch you.
everyone.
Safe
Bye-bye.
travels.
Bye.